One of the key things about that is that we have different senses of what is relevant. We're all looking at a different piece of the puzzle, and so our understanding of relevance is different. And John Vervaeke points out that that is actually a huge part of the problem in what's happening between this clash of the thesis and antithesis around COVID, also around many other issues, is that we don't have a shared sense of what is relevant. And if we don't have a shared sense of what's relevant, how on earth are we going to have a conversation that goes anywhere useful? Because we're actually seeing different realities.
Here's the thing. If you and I are going to argue at the propositional level, what we do is we try and amass evidence, right? But evidence is dependent on shared judgments of relevance. If I point to this and say it's evidence of that, and you go, that's irrelevant, because here's the secret fact behind that, right? If we do not have a shared, right, apprehension of relevance, that's the hermeneutics of beauty, by the way, then trying to point to evidence is irrelevant, because you will just dismiss or reinterpret. You will alter the relevance of any proposition I utter, and you will change its status. And I will say, but this is a central thing that counts as evidence for that. And you'll say, that's all irrelevant. You'll say, here's all these lab results showing how important the virus is. And you'll say, that's irrelevant because the labs are all corrupted by funding and, metapharma and all that. Or if you go the opposite way and say, well, look, here's the evidence for, right, that it's all corrupted. And the other person will say, but that hasn't been subject to scientific experimentation. And you'll just go blah, 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 blah. And that's what's happening. Exactly. That's what's happening.
And what's the way out then, John?
The point is to realize that who's winning in that isn't either side. Who's winning are, right? Who's winning is kind of like these anonymous, I'm not positing a conspiracy theory, I'm just saying, are these anonymous forces of the continual degradation of our capacity to be in contact with reality. We're all losing.
So the other part of that is that we're all making sense if we're making sense from a biased position, we're making sense from a place that is based on our kind of geographical location, it's based on our biographical history, it's based on so many other factors. And with COVID especially, I think there's such a different world depending on where you are in the world, depending on your vaccination status, which is really interesting. I'm vaccinated. Speaking to friends who are unvaccinated, they are almost literally experiencing a different reality. And listening to them and kind of having empathy for that is really interesting. Like recognizing, we went to Berlin fairly recently where you had to show your vaccine passport to get a beer, and even though I could do it, there was something that felt very off about that, like really off. And interestingly, in the UK, we've never had that. We've never had a vaccine status deciding your entrance to restaurants, deciding your entrance to bars or any of that stuff. And it's that feels very wrong from a British perspective. Like I think we've got a very strong kind of negative liberty bias in the UK. Going about your kind of daily business has never been controlled in that way. Whereas I know friends who live in Canada, especially who are unvaccinated, who can't go to restaurants, can't go to bars, like that feels incredibly different. And I really fucking don't like being told what to do. Any kind of sense of being told what to do like really rubs me up the wrong way. So I really identify with people who kind of feel that way. And I think if I lived in somewhere like Australia, let alone Germany or Austria, where they are actually kind of going down the full-on kind of segregation of society based on vaccination status, is crazy. Like and I think it would be much more relevant to me than it is living in the UK, where I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home a lot of the time, to be able to kind of masking in London has been pretty much, you wear it in shops, no one really wears it out on the street. I was in Mexico last year and they had a rule that you had to wear your mask on the street, and armed police kind of basically enforcing that you had to wear a mask on the street. It's like, fuck you. That would be a completely different situation. There's